What's your future like?
I'm not sure. That's in God's hands.
City of Contradictions, the unveiling crisis of homelessness in America. When people envision Los Angeles, the immediate images that spring to mind are often those of glimmering lights, sun-drenched, palm-lined boulevards, and the irresistible allure of celebrity culture. It stands, in the global imagination, as the ultimate symbol of opportunity, innovation, and the quintessential American dream. Yet, beneath this meticulously curated and often dazzling surface lies a profound and stark contradiction, an escalating humanitarian crisis that is playing out in plain sight on the very streets of one of America's wealthiest and most influential cities. This contradiction is not merely visual or economic. It represents a deeply unsettling moral dilemma that is becoming increasingly impossible for anyone to ignore. Homelessness in America is no longer a fringe issue, confined to the margins of society. It has unequivocally become a defining challenge of our time, a litmus test for our collective humanity and societal resilience. For many, the idea of a major U.S. city collapsing may sound hyperbolic, bordering on alarmist. However, Los Angeles presents a sobering and highly illustrative case study of how a seemingly prosperous metropolis can be brought to its knees, not by natural disaster or external conflict, but by a complex, interwoven web of systemic failures. These failures are not isolated incidents unique to Southern California. On the contrary, they are tragically replicated in cities, towns, and even rural communities across the entire nation, albeit perhaps on a different scale. What is unfolding in Los Angeles is not solely a local emergency. It is a profound mirror reflecting a broader, more deeply troubling national reality, demanding urgent attention and a fundamental rethinking of our societal priorities. The reality behind the facade, a tale of two cities. The stark juxtaposition within Los Angeles is perhaps its most haunting characteristic. In the manicured enclaves of Beverly Hills or Malibu, one can find individuals leisurely enjoying a morning artisanal coffee in stylish, sunlit cafes, their lives seemingly untouched by hardship. Yet, just a few short miles away, often within the same census tract, individuals who once held advanced degrees, maintained professional careers, and contributed significantly to society now sleep precariously under tarps on cracked, unforgiving sidewalks. Public spaces, once vibrant arenas for joy, leisure, and community gatherings, have been tragically repurposed, becoming default, unsanctioned shelters. City sidewalks, once bustling thoroughfares, are now linear tent cities, stretching for blocks. Cars, often with darkened windows, serve as makeshift, insecure homes, while once recreational parks are no longer spaces for play but grim zones of survival, marked by the constant struggle for existence. This visual dichotomy is not just jarring. It is deeply telling of a profound societal fracture. The data unequivocally supports this visual evidence, transforming anecdotal observations into undeniable facts. According to sobering 2024 figures from the Los Angeles Times, more than 75 individuals are currently experiencing homelessness across the sprawling landscape of Los Angeles County. This number is far more than a mere statistic. It represents tangible, individual lives, each fraught with unique struggles, dreams deferred, and futures rendered painfully uncertain. To put this figure into a chilling perspective, if those 75 individuals were to stand shoulder to shoulder, they could form an unbroken human chain, stretching from the iconic sands of Venice Beach all the way to the bustling heart of downtown Los Angeles, leaving not an inch of empty space along the way. MacArthur Park, once a scenic urban oasis in the heart of Los Angeles, has become one of the city's most visible symbols of decline and desperation. What was once a lively space filled with music, family gatherings, and peaceful strolls is now lined with makeshift tents, strewn belongings, and the daily struggles of hundreds living without secure shelter. The scent of street food once carried by the breeze has been replaced by the acrid smoke of makeshift fires. Nearby, upscale condos and trendy coffee shops offer a jarring contrast, a reminder that unimaginable poverty and extreme wealth coexist here, separated by mere blocks. This part of the city feels less like a neighborhood and more like a forgotten zone, where survival has replaced community and fear has silenced joy. Who are the homeless? Dispelling misconceptions. A prevalent yet profoundly damaging misconception is that homelessness is primarily a result of personal moral failing, a consequence of poor life choices, or an inherent lack of ambition. However, the reality is far more intricate, multifaceted, and often heartbreaking. The homeless population is remarkably diverse, reflecting a broad cross-section of society. Among those without stable housing are a significant number of former military personnel, veterans who once served their country with honor and distinction. There are countless single parents desperately trying to provide for their children amidst unimaginable hardship. Many individuals suffer from chronic physical and mental illnesses, conditions often exacerbated by the very act of being unhoused. And perhaps most unsettling, a growing number of individuals once belonged firmly to the middle class, professionals who held stable jobs, owned homes, and contributed to their communities. Indeed, many individuals find themselves unhoused due to a cascading series of circumstances entirely beyond their immediate control. A sudden, catastrophic medical emergency, even with insurance, can rapidly deplete savings and lead to insurmountable debt. An unexpected job loss, especially in an increasingly competitive market, can quickly erode financial stability. A sudden and dramatic rent increase, a common occurrence in hyperinflated housing markets, can render even previously affordable housing unattainable overnight. In cities like Los Angeles, where the cost of living is consistently ranked among the highest in the nation, even seemingly minor disruptions to financial equilibrium can have devastating, irreversible consequences. Homelessness in America, therefore, increasingly means vulnerability to powerful economic and societal forces that no single person can reasonably be expected to handle alone, underscoring a fundamental failure of collective support systems. The disintegration of the middle class, a perilous edge. The once clear line between being financially stable and experiencing homelessness has, in recent years, grown perilously thin, almost to the point of vanishing from many. In cities like Los Angeles, the conventional wisdom that a full-time job guarantees a roof over one's head is no longer a reliable truth. For many, a single, full-time income is often shockingly insufficient to cover basic living expenses. Rental costs have surged to unprecedented heights, with the average apartment in Los Angeles now exceeding an astonishing $2,500 per month. For countless working families, this figure represents an insurmountable barrier. Home ownership, once a cornerstone of the American dream and a primary means of wealth accumulation, is increasingly out of reach for all but the wealthiest, with average home prices in Los Angeles nearing $1 million, a staggering 2.5 times the national average. The pressure extends beyond housing. Food prices have also spiked dramatically, adding another layer of financial strain. Basic pantry staples such as eggs and milk have seen increases of over 30% in just 2 short years, transforming everyday necessities into significant budget items. A nutritious meal once taken for granted by working families is now fast becoming a luxury for many. Compounding this challenge, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, which once served as a vital lifeline for millions of low-income Americans, has faced significant funding cuts in recent years. This has left over 41 million Americans with reduced or entirely eliminated food support, forcing impossible choices between food, rent, and other essential bills. This systematic erosion of financial stability has profound and far-reaching implications. Families that once felt secure, perhaps even comfortable, now find themselves precariously teetering on the edge of a precipice. A single missed paycheck, an unexpected car repair bill, or an unforeseen medical expense can trigger a devastating cascade of events that ultimately culminates in homelessness. Homelessness in America, therefore, increasingly means middle-class families forced to make desperate choices, living in their vehicles, couch, surfing indefinitely with reluctant relatives, or entering the often overcrowded and impersonal world of emergency shelters. The face of homelessness is changing, reflecting a broader economic fragility, a strained safety net, holes in the fabric of support. Public assistance programs, designed to be the last line of defense against destitution, are currently operating under immense and unprecedented pressure. The compounding crises of the pandemic, subsequent rampant inflation, and the ever-growing wealth gap have exponentially increased the demand for these critical services. However, funding and staffing for these essential programs have simply not kept pace with the soaring need. Community health centers are perpetually overwhelmed, operating at or beyond capacity, struggling to meet the urgent medical needs of a growing population. Mental health services, already chronically underfunded, are forced to prioritize only the most acute, immediate crises, often tragically overlooking the chronic, low-grade suffering that quietly accumulates over time, festering until it becomes unmanageable. Older adults, in particular, face unique and often heartbreaking challenges when attempting to navigate these strained systems. Many seniors, having grown up in an analog world, simply lack the digital literacy required to competently navigate complex online application systems for vital aid. A single, unintentional misconfirmation click or an incorrectly uploaded document can result in the catastrophic loss of crucial food or housing assistance. Anecdotal evidence suggests some seniors go months without receiving the support they are legally entitled to, simply because they cannot navigate the bewildering labyrinth of bureaucratic systems, which are increasingly digitized and impersonal. The net result is a social safety net riddled with gaping holes. The very people who are most in need, the frail elderly, the severely disabled, vulnerable single-parent families, and those with chronic health conditions often fall tragically through these cracks. These systemic gaps do not merely contribute to rising homelessness, they actively perpetuate cycles of intergenerational poverty and despair. Homelessness in America is not merely about losing a physical home. It is fundamentally about being failed by the very systems and institutions that are ostensibly designed and funded to protect and uplift citizens in their most vulnerable moments. Real stories, real lives, beyond the statistics. The statistics, while vital, only tell part of the story. To truly comprehend the crisis, one must look into the individual narratives. Consider Carlos, a second-generation Mexican-American who once thrived as a skilled electrician in Southern California. For nearly 2 decades, he built a reputation for reliability, working long hours to support his aging parents and put his daughter through college. But when the construction firm he worked for shut down during the COVID-19 pandemic, Carlos struggled to find new opportunities in an industry gutted by automation and outsourcing. A few months later, his father's medical bills, barely covered by insurance, drained what little savings he had. Unable to keep up with the rent hikes that followed inflation, Carlos was eventually evicted. He now sleeps in the back of his old work van, parked discreetly behind a strip mall in East LA. His once prized union certification now lies buried under tools he no longer uses. In the unforgiving calculus of survival, decades of honest labor and community contribution have proven no match for the crushing weight of modern economic insecurity. Or take Janice, a pediatric nurse with over 15 years of experience at a major hospital in downtown Los Angeles. Earning a modest but steady income of around $72,000 a year, she was once seen as the embodiment of job security in the healthcare sector. But between rising rent, increasing gas prices, and growing debt from caring for her disabled younger brother, her finances gradually unraveled. When her landlord raised the rent by $800 with only 30 days' notice, she had no choice but to leave. Unable to find anything affordable near her workplace, Janice began sleeping in her car during night shifts and showering at the hospital. Her story is a painful reminder that even the most dedicated professionals, those who care for our most vulnerable, are not immune to the economic pressure crushing the city's middle class. Today, she continues working, exhausted and invisible, holding lives together while her own life quietly falls apart. These stories are not anomalies. They are increasingly representative. They powerfully illustrate how pervasive systemic challenges, from housing affordability to economic shocks, can reduce even the most educated, hardworking, and professionally accomplished individuals to a state of profound housing insecurity. Homelessness in America, when viewed through these individual lenses, is not a reflection of individual inadequacy or moral failing, but rather a chilling indictment of collective shortcomings in public policy, economic structures, and societal compassion. Government interventions, promises, and pitfalls of progress. The government of Los Angeles has not been idle in the face of this monumental crisis. Significant efforts and resources have been directed towards addressing the issue. Programs like Housing First have gained traction, prioritizing getting individuals into stable housing without imposing often impossible preconditions such as employment, sobriety, or mental health treatment. The underlying belief, supported by research, is that stability must come before any form of sustainable rehabilitation or self-sufficiency can realistically begin. More recently, the Inside Safe initiative has been launched, specifically aiming to transition people living in dangerous street encampments into temporary housing, such as motels or small shelters, as a precursor to more permanent solutions. Tiny homes, though undeniably small in footprint, provide a crucial measure of safety, privacy, and most importantly, a consistent roof over one's head, essentials that many individuals have tragically lacked for years, offering a stepping stone out of literal street homelessness. However, despite these intentions and the allocation of significant financial investment, hundreds of millions of dollars annually, the rate of homelessness in Los Angeles continues to rise. This paradox leads to widespread public frustration and legitimate questions from residents. Where exactly is this vast sum of money going? Some rightfully suspect inefficiencies, bureaucratic red tape, or even outright mismanagement within the complex web of agencies and nonprofits tasked with addressing the crisis. Others worry that the system has grown so incredibly complex, fragmented, and siloed that real, measurable progress becomes incredibly difficult to track, let alone achieve. In certain concerning cases, organizations specifically established to address homelessness have come under intense scrutiny for a lack of transparency regarding their funding, operations, and outcomes. While the vast majority of these organizations are undoubtedly well-intentioned and comprised of dedicated individuals, the sheer scale and urgency of the issue demand an unwavering commitment to accountability. The public needs to see tangible, verifiable outcomes, actual people housed, actual lives transformed, not merely stacks of policy papers, abstract reports, or optimistic press releases. Trust, vital for continued public support, hinges on demonstrable progress. The bigger picture, a national crisis, not just a local one. It is crucial to recognize that Los Angeles, while a prominent example, is far from an isolated case. Major cities across the United States are grappling with remarkably similar, escalating challenges. New York City, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, and countless others consistently report growing numbers of people experiencing homelessness. The underlying causes are often strikingly similar. Rents continue to aggressively outpace stagnant wages across vast swaths of the country. Mental health services remain woefully underfunded and difficult to access, despite growing recognition of their importance. And perhaps most critically, the affordable housing shortage is not a regional problem, but a profound nationwide crisis, impacting every corner of the country. Moreover, homelessness in America is no longer confined exclusively to densely populated urban areas. Increasingly, suburbs and even rural regions are reporting significant increases in their unhoused populations, especially among working families who, despite holding jobs, can no longer afford the escalating local rents. This unequivocally demonstrates that the crisis is not merely a city problem or a localized Los Angeles issue. It is a national dilemma, a pervasive societal ailment requiring unified, comprehensive, and urgent federal attention, funding, and coordinated policy solutions. A path forward, rethinking priorities for a humane society. Effectively addressing the complex crisis of homelessness requires nothing short of a fundamental shift in national priorities and a bold reevaluation of societal values. Firstly, housing must be unequivocally recognized and treated as a basic human right, not merely as a market commodity subject to the whims of supply and demand, speculation, and profit. Long-term, sustainable solutions must fundamentally include a massive, coordinated effort for the construction of truly affordable housing units across all income levels, particularly for the lowest earners. This must be complemented by significantly increased federal and state funding for comprehensive mental health services, moving beyond crisis management to preventative and ongoing care. Furthermore, reforms in wage and labor protections are critical to ensure that full-time employment can genuinely provide a living wage, sufficient to cover basic necessities, including housing. While public-private partnerships can certainly play a valuable role in innovation and resource mobilization, the core governmental responsibility for providing a social safety net is irreplaceable. Policies must be designed to reflect the undeniable interconnectedness of housing, employment, healthcare, including mental health, and education. We cannot continue to treat homelessness in isolation as if it were a distinct, self-contained problem. It is, in fact, the most visible, painful symptom of a deeper, systemic societal illness, stemming from decades of underinvestment in social services, widening economic inequality, and a lack of compassionate public policy. Finally, concerted educational campaigns can play a crucial role in combating the pervasive stigma associated with homelessness. By reframing homelessness as a systemic failure, a product of economic forces and policy choices, rather than a consequence of individual moral failings, society can begin to cultivate the profound empathy, understanding, and political will required to support and implement truly comprehensive, compassionate, and effective solutions. A resounding call to conscience. Homelessness in America is a phrase that should resonate with an urgent call to conscience, prompting deep reflection and decisive action. It is not a distant, abstract concern relegated to news headlines or urban peripheries. It is a profound national emergency unfolding in real time, right before our eyes. From the sun-drenched boulevards of Los Angeles to the bustling streets of New York, the frigid alleyways of Chicago, and every town and rural community across the country, this pervasive issue demands far more than mere charity or temporary fixes. It demands fundamental, transformative change. We, as a society, must look inward and ask ourselves profoundly uncomfortable questions. What kind of society do we truly aspire to live in? Do we genuinely value every human life, regardless of circumstance, or only those who fit neatly into our often narrow expectations of success and self-sufficiency? Do we truly believe in the promise of opportunity for all, or only for those who can afford its increasingly prohibitive price tag? The answers to these critical questions will not only define the future of the American dream, but also reveal the very soul of our nation. And perhaps, in confronting this deeply uncomfortable challenge together, with unwavering resolve, shared responsibility, and profound compassion, we can begin the long, arduous, but ultimately rewarding journey of rediscovering what it truly means to be a cohesive, just, and humane community. Homelessness in America must not be accepted as an unavoidable or normal byproduct of progress. It must be unequivocally recognized for the crisis that it is, a stain on our collective conscience, and treated with the unwavering seriousness, profound dignity, and urgent compassion it so desperately needs and deserves.